On the morning of March 8, 2025, Mahmoud Khalil, a 30-year-old Palestinian-American, was arrested outside his New York City apartment. DHS agents, acting without a warrant, took him into custody. The arrest sent shockwaves through Khalil's community and beyond. Khalil, a lawful permanent resident of the United States, was married to a US citizen. His wife was pregnant with their first child. He had recently graduated from Columbia University with a master's degree. Now, he found himself detained in a Louisiana immigration facility, his future uncertain. Khalil's arrest was immediately condemned by civil liberties groups. They called it a blatant attack on free speech. The arrest raised serious questions about the Trump administration's commitment to basic constitutional rights. The administration, however, remained defiant. They insisted that Khalil's arrest was justified on national security grounds. The initial justification provided by the Trump administration for Khalil's arrest was visa revocation. This claim was quickly debunked. Khalil was a lawful permanent resident, not a visa holder. The administration then shifted tactics. They began to allege that Khalil was involved in activities that posed a threat to US national security. The arrest of Mahmoud Khalil was not just about one man. It was a stark reminder of the Trump administration's willingness to use the power of the state to silence dissent. It was a sign of the times, a time of fear and division, and it was a wake-up call for anyone who believed that the rights guaranteed by the Constitution were safe from government overreach. The Trump administration's case against Mahmoud Khalil centered around his political activism. They claimed his work with pro-Palestinian groups at Columbia University constituted support for terrorism. Specifically, they pointed to his involvement in organizations that had expressed solidarity with Hamas. Hamas is designated as a terrorist organization by the United States. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, a staunch supporter of Israel, was a vocal proponent of Khalil's arrest. Rubio claimed Khalil's activities posed serious foreign policy risks to the United States. However, Rubio failed to provide any concrete evidence to support these claims. His statements were light on specifics and heavy on rhetoric. The administration attempted to justify its actions by citing a 1952 law. This law allows for the deportation of immigrants whose presence is deemed detrimental to the interests of the United States. Critics argued that this law, a relic of the Cold War, was being misused. They said it was being used to stifle legitimate political dissent. The government's case against Khalil was weak. It relied on guilt by association and flimsy allegations. The Trump administration was trying to silence a critic. They were using the specter of terrorism to justify their actions. Mahmoud Khalil refused to be silenced. He fought back against the Trump administration's attempts to deport him. His lawyers filed a lawsuit challenging his detention. They argued that the government's actions violated Khalil's First Amendment rights. The First Amendment guarantees freedom of speech and association. Khalil also took legal action against Columbia University. He sued the university to prevent them from sharing his disciplinary records with a Republican-led House committee. This committee was investigating alleged anti-Semitism on college campuses. Khalil argued that releasing his records would violate the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA. FERPA protects the privacy of student educational records. In a significant victory for Khalil, federal judge Jesse Furman temporarily blocked his deportation. Judge Furman ruled that Khalil's case raised serious constitutional questions. He said that Khalil was entitled to his day in court. Khalil's legal challenges were a beacon of hope for those who believe in the Constitution. His case showed that even in the face of government overreach, the courts could still serve as a bulwark against tyranny. Mahmoud Khalil's arrest and detention ignited a firestorm of controversy across the United States. Protests erupted in major cities, with people taking to the streets to demand his release. Jewish Voice for Peace, a prominent Jewish organization critical of Israel's policies, organized a demonstration in the lobby of Trump Tower. The protest, which included actor Deborah Winger, resulted in the arrest of nearly 100 people. Civil liberties groups rallied behind Khalil, condemning the Trump administration's actions. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, FIRE, sent a scathing letter to administration officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio. FIRE demanded answers about the legal basis for Khalil's arrest and detention, due process protections, and whether the government was using immigration enforcement to suppress protected speech. However, not everyone was sympathetic to Khalil's plight. Conservative media outlets and pro-Israel groups defended the Trump administration's decision to detain him. They accused Khalil of being a dangerous radical and a threat to national security. They pointed to his support for Palestinian rights as evidence of his extremism. The case of Mahmoud Khalil became a lightning rod for the deep divisions within American society. It exposed the fault lines over issues of free speech, national security, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Section 5. Mahmoud Khalil, A Life Interrupted. Mahmoud Khalil's journey to the United States was one of resilience and determination. Born in Syria, he was the grandson of displaced Palestinians. He grew up witnessing the injustice and suffering inflicted upon the Palestinian people. This experience ignited a passion for social justice within him. Khalil excelled academically, earning a scholarship to study in the United States. He arrived in 2022, eager to pursue his education and build a better future. In 2023, he met the love of his life, an American citizen. They married, putting down roots in New York City. After completing his master's degree at Columbia University in December 2024, Khalil had aspirations to work for a human rights organization. He dreamed of using his education and experiences to make a positive impact on the world. However, the Trump administration's actions shattered those dreams. Mahmoud Khalil's story is not unique. He is one of countless individuals whose lives have been upended by the Trump administration's draconian immigration policies. His case is a reminder of the human cost of these policies. Section 6. Echoes of Palestine. The global context. The arrest of Mahmoud Khalil unfolded against the backdrop of the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This conflict, which has raged for decades, escalated dramatically in October 2023 with a Hamas attack on Israel. The ensuing violence resulted in the deaths of over 48,000 Palestinians. There were widespread accusations of war crimes and genocide against Israel, accusations that Israel vehemently denied. The conflict in Gaza created a humanitarian catastrophe. Thousands of Palestinians were displaced from their homes. The region faced acute shortages of food, water, and medical supplies. The international community struggled to respond to the crisis. The Trump administration's unwavering support for Israel, coupled with its crackdown on Palestinian activism at home, fueled accusations of a double standard. Critics argued that the administration was turning a blind eye to Israel's human rights violations while silencing those who dared to speak out against them. The case of Mahmoud Khalil highlighted the interconnectedness of domestic and foreign policy. It showed how the United States' actions on the world stage could have a profound impact on the lives of its own citizens. Section 7. The First Amendment on trial. The arrest of Mahmoud Khalil raised fundamental questions about the limits of free speech in the United States. The First Amendment to the Constitution guarantees the right to freedom of speech. This right is not absolute. There are limits, particularly when it comes to speech that incites violence or poses a clear and present danger. The Trump administration argued that Khalil's activism crossed the line from protected speech into dangerous incitement. However, they failed to provide any concrete evidence to support this claim. They relied on guilt by association, suggesting that his involvement with groups that had expressed support for Hamas was sufficient to deem him a threat. Civil liberties advocates argued that the government's actions set a dangerous precedent. They warned that if the government could silence Khalil for his political views, it could silence anyone. They emphasized that the First Amendment protects even unpopular speech and that the government should not be in the business of policing thought. The case of Mahmoud Khalil served as a stark reminder of the fragility of free speech in the face of government overreach. It highlighted the importance of a vigilant citizenry and a robust legal system to protect this fundamental right. Section 8. Columbia University, a microcosm of conflict. Columbia University, the setting for much of Mahmoud Khalil's activism, found itself at the center of the storm surrounding his arrest. The university, with its diverse student body and history of political engagement, became a microcosm for the broader debate over free speech, academic freedom, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Over the past year, Columbia University had witnessed numerous protests related to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. These protests often led to clashes between pro-Palestinian and pro-Israel groups on campus. The university administration faced criticism from both sides. One side accused the administration of stifling pro-Palestinian activism. The other side accused the administration of not doing enough to protect Jewish students from harassment and intimidation. The Trump administration's decision to cancel $400 million in grants and contracts to Columbia University, citing alleged anti-Semitism, further inflamed tensions. Critics accused the administration of using its financial power to punish the university for its perceived lack of support for Israel. The situation at Columbia University illustrated the challenges facing institutions of higher education in navigating politically charged issues. It highlighted the delicate balance between protecting free speech and fostering an inclusive and respectful campus environment. Section 9. The Uncertain Future of Mahmoud Khalil. As of March 13, 2025, Mahmoud Khalil remained in detention, his future hanging in the balance. While Judge Jesse Furman's temporary block on his deportation provided a glimmer of hope, the legal battle was far from over. The Justice Department was actively trying to dismiss Khalil's challenge. They also wanted the case moved out of New York. Further court hearings were scheduled, and Khalil's lawyers were preparing their next moves. The outcome of Khalil's case had the potential to set a significant precedent for the rights of immigrants and the limits of government power in the United States. If the Trump administration succeeded in deporting him based on his political views, it would send a chilling message to activists across the country. It would embolden the administration to target other individuals who dared to criticize U.S. foreign policy. However, if Khalil prevailed in court, it would be a major victory for free speech and due process. It would reaffirm the principle that the government cannot silence dissent simply because it finds certain viewpoints distasteful or inconvenient. The future of Mahmoud Khalil remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. His case had become a symbol of the ongoing struggle for justice and equality in an increasingly polarized world.
If you want more news, subscribe now and become part of an engaged and discerning audience.